People thought Clara was strange. Who feeds the dog before the children? Who stands there watching, waiting, timing every bite? But what they didn't know was simple. Clara's reasons were far deeper and far more urgent than anyone imagined. Hold on. This story is about to touch your heart in ways you didn't expect. And if you're just joining us, subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. From the outside, the Richard home looked like the kind of place nothing bad could ever happen. A tall white fence, trimmed flowers, spotless tiles, a steady hum of comfort and wealth. But the first day, Clara stepped through the gate as the new housemaid. She felt it, a quiet tension hanging in the air, like a house holding its breath. Richard himself was hardly ever around, a pilot who spends almost all his days flying from country to country. He greeted Clara warmly the morning she resumed, thanked her for joining the family, and hurried off to pack his suitcase. 10 minutes later, he was gone, and the house changed immediately. Victoria, his second wife, stood in the living room doorway with the softest smile Clara had ever seen, the kind of smile that looked perfect, controlled, practiced. "Welcome, dear," she said, touching Clara's shoulder lightly. "You'll find we are a peaceful home." But Clara noticed something. The moment Richard's car rolled out of the gate, Victoria's smile fell flat. Her eyes hardened, and she simply turned away. The children, Emma and David, came out slowly from the hallway. Both thin, their uniforms a little loose, their eyes tired. But they tried to be cheerful. "Auntie Clara, are you the new maid?" Emma asked quietly. "Yes, darling," she said warmly. "I'm here to help take care of you." David nodded, but even his nod looked scared. Clara didn't understand it. Scared of what? Her first week went smoothly. She cooked simple meals, rice, beans, stew, pasta, and the children ate happily. They laughed. They talked. They told her about school. Everything felt normal, but normal did not last. On the 8th day, Victoria walked into the kitchen wearing a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Clara," she said, "from today onward, I will be the one cooking for the children. I want them to eat very nutritious meals. You will only serve whatever I prepare. No changes, no additions." Clara nodded. "Yes, Ma." The first special meal came that evening, a thick, creamy soup that smelled too strong for children. But Clara served it. 15 minutes later, David was on the floor holding his stomach, crying. Emma was shivering beside him. Clara panicked. "Madam, something is wrong." Victoria rushed forward dramatically, touching David's head. "Oh dear, it's food poisoning," she said quickly. "He must have eaten something bad at school." Clara wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. The next morning, David was fine again, running, laughing, as if nothing happened. But dinner came, another special meal, and Emma threw up twice before sleeping. Again, Victoria blamed school. Again, Clara kept quiet. Days turned into weeks, and a pattern began to form, a frightening, clear pattern. Every time Victoria cooked her special meals, the children fell sick. Every time Clara cooked simple food, they were fine. At first, Clara thought maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe the meals were too heavy for children. Maybe they were reacting to something new. She tried to convince herself nothing was wrong, but she couldn't ignore what she saw at the table. Emma eating slowly, eyes on her plate like she was scared of it. David taking tiny bites, swallowing like the food was fighting him. Both children glancing toward the kitchen door, watching for Victoria's shadow. Clara began to feel sick herself. Something was wrong. One afternoon, Clara walked into the kitchen to find Victoria putting on latex gloves before touching raw vegetables. Gloves for vegetables. Then washing her hands 3 separate times after cutting fish. Clara paused at the doorway. Victoria looked up with that perfect smile. "You're early," she said calmly. "I'm preparing a very special dish for the children today." Clara swallowed and forced a smile. "Yes, Ma." But deep inside, her heart beat fast. As she served that meal later that evening, Emma's hand trembled. Then she whispered, "Do we have to eat this?" Clara bent down and whispered, "Just try a little, okay? I'm here." Minutes later, Emma complained of dizziness. David said he felt cold. Clara kept her face straight, but fear crawled up her spine. Meanwhile, Max, the family's golden retriever, sat by Clara's feet, tail wagging, full of life. The only soul in the house that seemed truly happy. By the end of Clara's first month, one thing was clear. This house had secrets. The children were in danger. And whatever was happening was coming from Victoria's kitchen. And Clara knew, whether she liked it or not, she was standing right in the middle of something dark. Then something extra happened. Emma had woken up pale that morning, her lips dry, her eyes tired. Clara had barely served breakfast when Emma suddenly pushed her plate away and whispered, "Auntie, my stomach hurts." Within minutes, she was trembling, curled on the sofa, breathing in short, weak gasps. Victoria walked in, took one glance at Emma's condition, and instead of panic, as usual, something else flickered across her face. A strange calm, almost satisfaction. She placed a hand on Emma's forehead. Poor thing. Children fall sick all the time. But the tone was wrong. Too casual, too steady, as if she was expecting this. Clara felt her heart tighten. Emma had been smiling just 20 minutes ago. How did she become this sick so suddenly? From that moment, Clara's mind refused to rest. She began watching everything more closely, especially Victoria's cooking routine. For someone who claimed she wanted her stepchildren to eat nutritious meals, she guarded the kitchen like a lion protecting prey. Clara wasn't allowed to help, wasn't allowed to taste, and wasn't allowed to ask questions. And the children, they didn't eat like normal children anymore. They ate slowly, stiffly, watching Victoria's face as if waiting for a reaction. One afternoon, when the house was quiet, Clara entered the kitchen to clean the counters. Victoria was cooking the children's lunch. Clara kept her distance, pretending not to pay attention. Then she heard the sound, a small tap, like a container being opened. Curious, she glanced over her shoulder, and her heart almost stopped. Victoria wasn't adding salt. She wasn't adding seasoning. She was pouring white powder from a small container she had pulled from the back of a drawer. Victoria's hand was steady. Too steady. She didn't measure it. She didn't hesitate. She just sprinkled the powder into the children's food as if she had done it many times before. Clara froze. Her breath stuck in her chest, her hand still gripping the cleaning cloth. She didn't move, not even when Victoria suddenly looked up. For a moment, their eyes met. Silence. Heavy, sharp silence. Then Victoria slowly closed the container, slid it back into the drawer, and gave Clara a cold, practiced smile. "Oh, that," she said lightly, almost playfully. "It's special vitamins. Their pediatrician wants them to have extra nutrients." She turned back to the stove with that same smile still sitting on her face. "But thank you for worrying." Clara nodded, but her stomach twisted. Nothing about what she saw felt like vitamins. Nothing about Victoria's eyes felt honest. Later that day, when Victoria left the house for her spa appointment, Clara rushed into the kitchen. Her hand shook as she opened the drawer. The container wasn't labeled. No instructions, no directions, just a plain bottle with faint powder residue on its rim. She did the only thing she could. She snapped a quick photo. By evening, she showed it to a friend who worked in a pharmacy. Her friend didn't even let her finish explaining before whispering sharply, "Clara, this isn't multivitamins. This is poison, arsenic-based. Why do you have this? Where did you see it?" Clara's throat dried instantly. Her legs went weak. Arsenic? Poison? In the children's food? Her mind spun. She remembered Emma's trembling, David's vomiting, the pale faces, the slow eating, the fear, the way Victoria watched them at the table like she was measuring something. Pieces of a puzzle she never expected to face suddenly aligned. Victoria wasn't careless. Victoria wasn't confused. Victoria was slowly poisoning them. Clara staggered backward, gripping her chest. She wanted to run to the police. She wanted to scream. She wanted to drag Emma and David out of the house immediately. But she had no proof. Not real proof. Only a photo Victoria could easily deny. If Clara confronted her, she would be fired. If she reported too soon, Victoria would twist the story. If she left the house, the children would be alone. That night, Clara sat on her bed with her heart shattering inside her. She kept hearing Emma's weak voice, David's tired breathing, and Victoria's cold smile. She couldn't leave them. She couldn't stay helpless. She needed a plan. Then she remembered Max, the dog. always energetic, always hungry, always begging at the kitchen door. A desperate, risky idea formed in her mind. If Victoria's food really contained poison, then Max would react, and Clara would finally have the evidence she needed. She didn't sleep that night. She just sat in the dark, praying she was wrong, and terrified that she might be right. Clara made her decision. From that day onward, every meal in that house would be a battle. One she planned to fight quietly, carefully, without Victoria ever knowing. The new system began at lunch. Victoria cooked her usual special meal, a fragrant soup with spices and vegetables. She set the pot on the counter and left the kitchen to take a call. The moment Clara heard her footsteps fade, she moved fast. She scooped a small portion into a separate plate, slipped out to the backyard, and placed it in front of Max. Max wagged his tail happily. He always did, and ate without hesitation. Clara crouched beside him, her heart pounding as she watched the seconds pass. 10 minutes. 15. 20. Then it happened. Max stopped moving. His breathing changed. He staggered sideways and vomited, whining in pain. Clara covered her mouth with both hands, fear slicing through her. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Victoria had poisoned the soup. She rushed inside, dumped the children's plates, and threw the pot down the sink, washing it out so fast her hands shook. When Emma and David came to ask about lunch, Clara forced a smile. "Max ate your soup by mistake," she said quickly. "I'll just make you bread and eggs today. Don't worry." The children accepted it without question. They were used to strange rules in that house. But Victoria wasn't. Later that evening, she asked sharply, "Clara, why didn't the children eat the soup I cooked?" Clara kept her head down. "They weren't very hungry today, madam." Victoria's eyes lingered on her for a moment too long. But she didn't push. She simply turned away with a cold, irritated sigh. And so the pattern began. For the next 3 months, Clara intercepted 7 poisoned meals. Every time Victoria cooked her special dishes, Clara gave Max a small portion first. Every time, Max reacted, vomiting, shaking, losing energy. Every time, Clara invented an excuse to throw the food away and prepare something simple. But Max paid the price. Slowly, the dog that once ran in circles around the compound began limping. His fur thinned. His eyes lost their brightness. Some days he barely lifted his head when Clara came out with a plate. It broke her. This innocent creature was suffering just to keep Emma and David alive. Clara didn't have the luxury of fear anymore. She needed proof, real, undeniable proof. She began saving small food samples from every poisoned meal, hiding them in sealed containers behind the washing machine, labeling dates, recording reactions, doing everything she could without getting caught. But the children noticed the growing pattern. One day Emma whispered, "Auntie Clara, why does our dog keep getting sick?" Clara knelt in front of her, brushing her hair gently. "Don't worry, my dear. Everything will be okay soon. I promise." It was all she could say. Telling them the truth would terrify them and put them in more danger. Meanwhile, Victoria was becoming frustrated. The children were not getting sick. Her smile grew tighter, her voice sharper, and the meals grew more suspicious. Clara noticed the powder increasing. The doses weren't subtle anymore. Victoria was getting desperate. And then it happened. One evening, Max ate the poisoned rice Clara slipped him. Within minutes, he collapsed. His body shook violently. This time, Clara didn't wait. She grabbed him, wrapped him in a towel, and rushed out of the house, telling the gate man she was going to buy medicine. She ran into the nearest vet clinic, panting, crying, begging them to help. The vet examined Max, ran quick tests, and frowned deeply. "This dog has poison in his system," he said. "Arsenic. High levels. How did this happen?" Clara's heart cracked. But she finally had what she needed: medical documentation, evidence, proof. And tomorrow, Richard was coming home after 3 weeks abroad. Tomorrow, everything would finally come out. Everything. Richard returned, dropping his bags the moment he stepped inside. Victoria rushed into his arms, smiling sweetly, and the children hugged him tightly. But as he pulled back, his smile faded. Emma and David were thinner, paler, shadows of the lively kids he left behind. Why do they look like this? Richard asked. Victoria gently rubbed his arm. They've just been picky eaters lately. You know how children are. Richard wasn't convinced, but he let it go. That evening, Victoria prepared an elaborate welcome-home dinner. The aroma filled the house as everyone gathered at the table. Clara hovered quietly, tense, watching every movement. Richard sat, ready to eat, until he noticed something strange. Clara walked straight to Max's bowl and served the dog a full plate from the family's meal. The children didn't touch their food. They just watched quietly, waiting. Richard frowned. Clara, why is the dog eating before my children? Clara swallowed hard. Sir, please. Just wait 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Richard snapped. My children are hungry now. Victoria placed a hand on his shoulder dramatically. Darling, I've been meaning to tell you. Clara has been behaving oddly lately. Richard didn't even let her finish. He grabbed the plates himself and moved to serve Emma and David. Clara panicked. No, sir, please don't let them eat. She lunged forward and snatched the plates from his hands. Richard exploded. Have you lost your mind? You're fired. Pack your things now. Clara broke. Tears streamed down her face. Sir, please listen. Your wife is poisoning your children. The food is dangerous. Victoria gasped perfectly on cue, tears filling her eyes. What? Richard, what is she saying? I've done nothing but love these children. She turned to him, trembling. She's been paranoid for months. I warned you. Richard shook his head. Clara, stop this. My wife would never. Before he could finish, Clara ran to her room. In seconds, she returned with containers, photos, and folded sheets. Look, safe samples of food. Vet reports. Photos of her adding powder. Please, sir. Victoria stepped forward quickly. She probably poisoned those herself. She's framing me. Richard, call the police. Richard snatched the papers and scanned them. Vet reports. Photos. Notes. His eyes narrowed, but his faith in Victoria fought back. Victoria leaned in. Those photos are out of context. That powder is vitamins. Emma and David sat silently, their small faces tight with fear. Richard looked between them, Clara and Victoria, completely torn. Enough, Victoria cried. I want her arrested. Now. Richard signaled estate security. Two guards grabbed Clara's arms as she sobbed, kicking. Sir, please, test the food. Just test it. As she was pulled back, Emma suddenly screamed, a sound that cut the entire room still. Daddy, don't take her. Richard froze. Emma ran to him, shaking. Clara saved us. Mama's food always makes us sick. Please believe her. David nodded, voice trembling. Clara's food never hurts us. Only Mama's special meals. For the first time, Victoria's face cracked, fear flashing through her perfect mask. Richard saw it. He turned slowly, voice cold. Wait, nobody leaves this room. I'm getting the truth tonight. The room was silent, too silent. Richard turned to Victoria, his face drained of warmth. If this food is safe, he said, eat it. Just one bite. Victoria froze. Richard, I already ate earlier. I'm not hungry. One bite, he repeated. Prove Clara is lying. Her hands trembled. Sweat formed along her hairline. This is ridiculous. I don't have to entertain this madness. You do, Richard said, stepping closer. If my children can eat it, so can you. She backed away. That was all Richard needed. He took out his phone. I'm calling the police. They'll test the food. Victoria jolted. Richard, stop this. You're embarrassing me. But he was already speaking to the emergency line. I need officers with poison testing equipment. Now, the next 20 minutes felt like hours. Victoria kept pacing, trying to move toward the door, but Richard blocked her every time. Clara sat on the floor where security left her, shaking, staring at the children who clung to her. Emma whispered, It's okay. Daddy believes us now. Then the gate buzzer rang. Police entered with portable test kits. No one breathed as they scraped samples from the plates. The chemical test strip darkened immediately, almost black. The officer looked up. Sir, this food contains lethal amounts of arsenic, enough to kill a child within hours. It was like the air left the room. Victoria lunged for the door, screaming. Security grabbed her. Let me go. They're all liars. All of them. Richard stepped back, horrified. Victoria, you tried to kill my children. She thrashed violently, mascara streaking, the mask completely gone. They're not my children. Why should I waste my life on another woman's brats? They ruined everything. I deserved a life without them. Richard almost collapsed. Police spread out, searching the house. Minutes later, they returned with a small locked box from Victoria's closet. Inside, hidden packets of white powder, receipts, empty containers. Arsenic-based poison, sir, the officer said. Large quantities. Another officer held out documents. We also found life insurance policies for Emma and David. 50 million naira each. Beneficiary, Victoria Okafor. The entire room spun. Clara covered her mouth. Emma and David cried silently. Richard stared at the woman he married. You planned to kill them and cash out their deaths. Victoria snapped. Yes, I married you for money, and they were in the way. Her voice was no longer sweet. It was sharp, bitter, monstrous. Police didn't even need more. But more came anyway. The lead officer approached Richard. Sir, your housemaid likely saved your children's lives for months. What she did was dangerous, but heroic. Victoria was dragged out in handcuffs, still screaming, still blaming everyone but herself. Charged with attempted murder and insurance fraud. The moment she was gone, Emma and David threw themselves into Clara's arms. You saved us, Emma cried. You saved us. Richard approached slowly, voice broken. Clara, I'm so sorry. I doubted you. You protected my children when I wasn't here. Clara shook her head. I just did what anyone decent would do, sir. But they both knew that wasn't true. Most people would have walked away. News spread fast. Heroic maid saves children from poisoning stepmother. Cameras came. Reporters came. Clara stayed humble. Richard divorced Victoria immediately. She lost everything. Money, status, even her last name. He offered Clara anything she wanted. She asked only to stay with the children. 1 year passed. Healing came slowly, but it came. The children grew healthier, happier. Clara became their anchor. Richard grew close to her. Their bond formed through fire. Eventually, love formed, quiet but real. They married in a small ceremony. Emma sprinkled flowers. David carried the ring. No poison, no fear, only peace. One evening during dinner, Emma asked, Will we ever forget Mama Victoria? Richard looked at his children, his wife, his new family. We won't forget, he said, because remembering helps us recognize evil. But we'll focus on the love that saved us. Clara squeezed Emma's hand, and for the first time in a very long time, the house felt safe.